guys, Beth here. I hope you're all doing well today. So you may know 2 days ago I put it on Facebook and Instagram. I basically put it out to you guys to offer any kind of poses or exercises or things that you might be having trouble with yoga, Pilates, yoga lattes. And I might just offer this time to troubleshoot a little bit and offer some solutions. So thank you to everyone who put their suggestions forward of things that they want to work on. I thought I would focus on knee health today because this seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. I think there are ways, even though yoga is not the perfect practice for sore knees, or if you've got any issues with your knees, there are poses that are just not good. So for knee health, it can be a little bit tricky, but there are ways that you can tweak a pose or support yourself in a pose, or use extra props, which I'm going to show you some ideas in a moment. But it's really important to look after your knees. A teacher that I've worked with in the past always says, there's no knee openers in yoga, and I love this idea. It's like there's heart openers, there's hip openers, but there's no knee openers. And we should really look after the knees. So poses that might be putting pressure on the knee joint over time, if you're doing yoga a lot, over time there's gonna be a lot of wear and tear on the joints. So it's really important to look after this part of your body, particularly because there's been a lot, people do injure themselves by doing repetitive actions with their knees in yoga without realizing that it might be harmful, and over time, pressure builds up and there's wear and tear in the joints. So really important, do look after your knees. So here are my tips. So tip number 1 is to think about pressure. So when we've got a pose like child's pose or seated Virasana, which is in the pose that I'm in right now, where you just sit your bum onto your heels and you've got this sort of pressure here in the knee joint. So I know a lot of my students who have knee issues do struggle with child's pose, where you fold forward, or this kind of pose. In my classes I would suggest sitting on something. That's a way to lift the hips up to release the pressure. But there's also a neat little trick that I learned that might be helpful. So if you've got a strap, and you can do this pretty much with anything that you've got, maybe some socks or something, but yoga belts are good because, you probably will have one nearby maybe if you're doing a class. So you can kind of like fold it over so you've got a little bit of a loop, and then there's a little bit of, you can see that, a little bit of maybe a couple of inches there with the loop. Play with it, see what works for you. And then if you come up into like a kneeling position, and you come forward onto all fours, and then you pop that right into the knee joint, and then you sit back. That can actually relieve the pressure. Like, I already feel that that's much nicer for my knees, to have a little bit of padding in the back of the knee joint, quite close into the crease, so that it just relieves the intensity on the joint, the pressure on the joint. Obviously, if you're coming quickly in and out of poses, that might not be a great option, but if you're sort of in child's pose for a while, or if you're sitting like this in meditation, or at the beginning or the end of the class, it's a great way to kind of relieve that pressure. And as I said, at the same time, sitting up on the hips on a cushion or a couple of blocks or a couple of cushions can be a really nice way to kind of relieve that pressure in the knees as well. Thinking about pressure. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and you can actually buy things that are specifically for this. There's one that I know that's called the Knee-G. I think it's spelled knee and then J-I on the end, or a similar kind of spelling to that. But if you Google that, you can actually buy things that you could just pop in the back of the knees that are actually designed for that very purpose. So, like I said, you can DIY, or you can buy one online if you fancy. The second thing I want to talk about is padding. So, if you're in all fours, and this is a really basic one, but often we don't think about it, if you're kneeling, just popping a blanket underneath the knees if you're in all fours, or even getting like a Pilates mat that's got a little bit more padding can be nice. And we do a lot of things on all fours in yoga lattes and yoga and Pilates. And that's already feeling a bit nicer on my knees than just the mat, especially if you're on a hard floor. Another little tip that is actually quite interesting, that you may not have thought of, is if you're sitting in a cross-leg position, or anything that you feel the knees just feel a bit like they're hovering off the floor. What you can do is you can grab a blanket or anything, whatever you've got nearby, roll it up so that you've got like a tube, and then you can actually just wrap it underneath to support the knees, so between the feet and the knees, and that just, I can feel how that my knees feel really happy there, just resting on that padding. Yeah, and you can also put that underneath the ankles or feet if the feet feel a little bit awkward, or the ankles, so you can actually like weave it underneath and, you know, support the side of the feet as well. Cool. Right. Third thing I want to talk about is position. So you probably can tell by now I've worked out there are 3 P's to my, oh, not 4, 3 P's to my knee video. So we've had pressure, so pressure on the joint, releasing that, padding, using props, using whatever you've got nearby to support the knees, and position. So this is one I talk about a lot in my classes. For example, if you're in a lunge, you know, it's making sure that you've got the knee roughly over the ankle, the heel. You know, quite often I see this happening where the knee's going way far forward, and over time, again, there's a lot of pressure on the knee. So making sure that alignment is there is something to bear in mind with lunges, with poses like Warrior 2 or side angle pose. There's a lot of poses where we're putting pressure on the knee, and the knee joint is working really hard for us, the legs working really hard, the back leg too. So that kind of really making sure that the knee isn't tracking way past the toes is really important. And the other thing is to think about is that, and you probably know this if you've done yoga or yoga Pilates with me, you will know that we want to kind of move that knee out. So if you're in Warrior 2, so I'll line that up, out with the back foot, you know, a lot of the time, you know, we can be tight in the hips, which means this knee sort of falls in. Try to keep it in alignment with the foot. So not only do we want to think about the knee over the heel, but we also want to think about the knee going in the same direction as the foot. And that's actually something I see a lot as well, is that people try and turn the hip by turning the foot, but the tightness is still there in the hip, which means the knee isn't actually going any wider. So in that case, I would say just, you know, bring the foot in a little bit, you know, look after the knee. So knee first and then the foot position. So rather than, and I see it in squats as well, you know, people coming down into squats, if the feet are quite turned out, but the knees are collapsed in. And if you really think about it, you know, the knees are going in this direction, but the feet are going out there. Over time, you know, I can already feel that in my knee joint. Over the time, it's going to put pressure on the inside of the knee. So you would bring the feet in, and you would lift the hips, the heels onto like a block or a blanket, or what else? Anything you've got lying around really at home to support the heels, so that you can really sit down, and then we've got that nice knee and feet alignment. So that's something to think about. Positioning of the knee, not too far over the toes, and also not too collapsed in, making sure that the feet and the knees are going in the same direction all of the time, really. That's kind of like a good grounding principle, I suppose, is thinking about the knees always, knees and feet, same direction. Cool. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about with you guys today. I hope that was helpful. If you got something from it, do let me know. Pop a comment in the comments, and let me know. I'm just about to start my 6:30 Yoga Pilates class here in the studio. I bought some brand new lights, so hopefully that might make a bit of a difference. I don't know, it's always a little bit dark here in the studio. But thank you so much for those who joined. Do pop me a comment if you would like, and wishing you all a lovely Thursday evening. I'll see you guys soon if you're coming to the class. Take care for now. Bye.